Well, Erol Morkoç, the UK spokesperson for Republicans overseas, is with us this evening. Hello, Errol.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Good evening. And Ed Kilgore, political columnist for New York Magazine and a former Democratic speechwriter. Hello, Ed.
Hi.
So he has the ICC in his trump set. It wants to target them. What's your view, Ed?
Which one?
Ed.
Well, of all the many things Donald Trump has done in the last week, at least in terms of American public opinion, the sanctioning the ICC is probably the least controversial to Americans. Now, taken in combination with his bizarre comments about turning Gaza into sort of a Mediterranean Mar-a-Lago, that may raise some more eyebrows, but I really don't think the ICC sanctioning action is going to have an effect on American influence internationally, but it's not really the subject of a great deal of controversy in the United States, really in either party.
Errol?
Yeah, we look at the ICC as basically a transnational organization that we've never subscribed to fully. Effectively, wealthy European countries pull people out of the second and third world and try them for war crimes. We've never subscribed to it, ascribed to it, or believed in it. And when it comes to our greatest ally in Israel and the fact that they keep repeatedly trying to try Benjamin Netanyahu for war crimes, as you've seen with Donald Trump's pretty strong pivot to change in that area, it doesn't surprise me whatsoever. Now, when you think about U.S. influence, you have to think about Marco Rubio has come out and said there is no more indispensable nation. We are not the only global superpower. There are multipolar world order, and America needs to take care of America first. And I think his frustration with the ICC is a frustration that many Americans have felt. We don't feel that there's an international court that should be trying people. We don't submit our presidents or people to it. Otherwise, Dick Cheney would be in The Hague right now. So I agree with the other gentleman on the line. Americans aren't going to get a lot of play from the ICC. It probably is the least of the news out of the last 48 hours.
President Trump, Ed Kilgore, has also threatened to impose tough tariffs on the European Union. He told the BBC that tariffs on EU goods imported into the United States could happen pretty soon, and European leaders warned that they would retaliate if Trump goes ahead with it. The EU foreign policy chief said there could be no winners in a trade war, and China would be laughing on the sidelines. Let's have a listen.
They don't take our cars, they don't take our farm products, they take almost nothing. And we take everything from them, millions of cars, tremendous amounts of food and farm products. So the UK is way out of line, and we'll see the UK, but European Union is really out of line. European Union is an atrocity.
So, will he follow through, do you think, Ed Kilgore, with the threat on the EU?
Well, there's a great division of opinion within Donald Trump's own party as to how he really feels about tariffs and protectionism. I think a lot of his business supporters hope that he will simply use it as a cudgel to secure both economic and other foreign policy concessions from other countries. I mean, what he did with Canada and Mexico, imposing tariffs and then suspending them for 30 days when they agreed to do stuff they were already doing on the border, is sort of a best case scenario for a lot of the business interests in the United States and in other countries. But Donald Trump has said over and over and over again, he thinks that the word tariff is the most beautiful word in the English language. He really does believe in it. He's actually talked about replacing the income tax system with tariffs, kind of going back to the 19th century way of raising government revenues. I think he really believes in it and wants to do it. So as to whether his domestic and international counterparts, how they're going to react to it is another question. But, in the end, what really matters politically is that if we do get into a trade war, is going to increase prices for goods and services in the United States. And the one thing I think that's pretty clear is that the cost of living was his most important issue in defeating Kamala Harris in 2024. It's really the one thing he can't get wrong. So that's very perilous for him and his party.
And maybe, Errol, once he's in there, in one of these trade wars, he might find it more difficult to get out of it again. Is that not a fundamental danger? This spiraling out of control.
Only if it's looked at through a historical lens that doesn't bring into the modern aspect of us being the single world's currency and the global hegemonic power. I agree with the other gentleman again on a lot of things. For example, this will be used as a cudgel. The idea is to bring people to the table. Now, we run a trade deficit for all goods with Europe, and the majority of goods we bring from Europe, take French wines or Irish whiskeys or these kind of goods. A lot of these goods are not what your regular everyday blue collar MAGA buyer is looking for. On the reverse, we run a surplus with the EU when it comes to tech, big tech. But big tech employs very few amount of people comparatively, and it employs people with massive salaries. So you're going to have a trade war where the Europeans are going to have their industrial base on the line, their blue-collar workers are going to be hurt, and they're not going to be able to afford to compete. Whereas our tech companies, Apple by itself is worth the entire UK stock market combined. So Europe is getting into a fight that they cannot win with the Americans. They know that, and they're going to probably provide the same concessions. Donald Trump, again, is looking for similar things to what he looked for in Canada and Mexico. That wasn't about economics. That was about stopping fentanyl from killing our kids. Whether or not they were going to do it before or after, the same thing with Europe. He's looking at the war in Russia. He's looking at NATO, and he's saying, we need you guys to step up and pull your weight, especially as America pivots towards the east and Europe becomes a third-tier continent in the global game.
John's in Bristol. Hello, John.
Oh, hello. Yes. Yes, hello.
Go ahead, John.
Well, yes. Well, what we're seeing, what we're living through right now is they're proposing ethnic cleansing, right? 2 million people being kicked out of their territory. So in 1948, we had 700,000 people kicked out of their homes and their land. And all those people that are growing up in Gaza, they are the sons and daughters and grandsons and daughters of those people that were kicked out in 1948. And now what America and Israel are proposing is to get rid of the rest of them. So this is ethnic cleansing 101. And what I'm hearing from the British media, they're almost making excuses for it.
Well, President Trump has restated his plan. This is some of what you're alluding to resettle the Palestinian residents of Gaza across the Middle East. Today, he is claiming that it's being, quote, very well received.
It's been very well received, where basically the United States would view it as a real estate transaction where we'll be an investor in that part of the world, and no rush to do anything. We wouldn't need anybody there. It would be supplied and given to us by Israel. They'll watch it in terms of security. We're not talking about boots in the ground or anything, but I think the fact that we're there, that we have an investment there, I think would go a long way to creating peace.
Here's Rob in Nottinghamshire. Hello, Rob.
Hi, Stephen.
Go ahead, sir.
Am I right in saying that the orange one is coming to the UK on a state visit?
I have no idea.
This summer. I think he is this summer. I think it's on the cards.
And what's the point?
Well, if the monarch does Starmer's dirty work for him, he'll be a suck-up shill.
He'll be a what?
A suck-up shill.
Right. So you think King Charles should boycott the president?
Absolutely. He should be at the airport with holding his nose, blowing a razzie at him. And he should be doing it to the other people, the other dicey world leaders that he's host. Here's Charlie's chance to break out and show, authority, what he thinks.
Ed Kilgore, thank you for your call. Ed Kilgore, your political columnist for New York Magazine. How much credibility does this Riviera plan for the Gaza Strip have with anybody?
Zero. There's no support for it that I could tell in either party in Washington. Some Trump supporters are suggesting that it's an example of, in the famous phrase of Selena Zito, you should take him seriously but not literally. Others have said that it's just sort of a dream vision, or that at least he's offering some practical solution to what's an intractable problem. But the specific idea of expelling 2 million people to countries that don't want them in order to create a resort on the Mediterranean, no, there is no support for that I can imagine in the United States in either party. And I'm pretty sure Republicans would like to see him stop talking about it.
It seems pretty tight with Benjamin Netanyahu, Ed.
Yes, he is. He always has been. And I think the most upset people right now are the Arab Americans and Muslim Americans who back Donald Trump as a superior alternative to Joe Biden and Kamala Harris when it came to what was happening in Gaza. But this particular solution, I think it's going to go away because nobody in the world supports it other than Benjamin Netanyahu.
08085 909 693. We're stepping through some of the big moments from President Trump this week. Erol Morkoç is the UK spokesperson for Republican Overseas, still with us this evening. Erol, let's look at the domestic controversy in the States when President Trump signed an order to ban transgender women from competing in female sports.
In a few moments, I'll sign a historic executive order to ban men from competing in women's sports. Under the Trump administration, we will defend the proud tradition of female athletes, and we will not allow men to beat up, injure, and cheat our women and our girls. From now on, women's sports will be only for women.
What are the people who identify as trans? What do they do now, Errol?
There's two sides to that answer. Number one, the people who are trans are welcome to compete in the sport that they are biologically connected to. This is something that has broad support, bipartisan support. I mean, 85% of Americans across all parties say they don't want men in women's sports. You've had women who've had their skulls shattered in volleyball that have serious damage. You have the fact that women are forced to change in locker rooms in front of biologically male people. You have a very uncomfortable situation, and this is something that is Donald Trump protecting women and girls. Donald Trump won the majority of married women, especially because of this. He's a grandfather to 10 and a father to 5. And myself, my fiance, my mother, my aunt, everybody I know, every woman I know was against the idea of having men and women's sports. Women fought so hard for Title IX to be able to have an equal footing and equal opportunity, especially at the collegiate level. Now, transgender people, they make up an incredibly small portion of society. And the idea that we have catered now to create this weird imbalance. You notice there's no transgendered women becoming men and competing against, whichever way, I don't know how to pronounce it, but there are not women competing against men in the men's division. There are only men competing against women in the women's division, based on the fact that there are only two genders in America now. And the transgendered movement is welcome to do what they want to people over the age of 18. But as far as women and girls, we, the American people, the majority who got a mandate, we all voted for this. Transgender people, we love you. Live your life as you want to, but you cannot abrogate the sovereignty of women's sports. It's different than men's sports.
Very, very briefly, Ed, do you think those transgender people in the United States feel loved?
No, definitely not. This whole business of sports participation is a bit of a red herring involving a very few number of cases. But the president and a lot of his supporters have been pretty savage about denying the basic existence of trans people and their legitimacy. But before we go, I really have to comment that what's remarkable in the last week is that Donald Trump has issued 54 executive orders. This was one of them That's more than all but one other president has issued in the first 100 days. And it's part of a very deliberate effort on his part to expand presidential powers to extent we've never seen before. He's doing it through his Office of Management and Budget that froze federal spending and created all kinds of chaos. And he's doing it through Elon Musk's raid on federal agencies. And he's not doing it through Congress, which really has the statutory authority to set policy.
Ed and Errol, thank you very much indeed. News time now at 11:33.
The voice of the UK.
And the home of the Six Nations.
This is BBC Radio 5 Live.
With the 5 Live News, I'm Nick Hatton. A judge in the US has said he will temporarily block Donald Trump's attempt to shutter the humanitarian